on each table, girls in the back, you'll need to join a table here in a little bit. There is a grid. And the grid looks like this. You've got example, antonym, explanation, and synonym. These are common types of context clues, which you might recall from last week. You are going, in groups, to take the 10 questions I gave you from an actual test, and you are going to try to figure out what types of questions they are based off of the context clues that they give you. So you're not answering the question. I don't care what the definition of the vocabulary word is at this time. What I want you to do is identify what type of context clue you're being asked. So if you find one and it is an antonym, you would put it down where it says antonym. And if it was an example, you would put it in the box that says example. What we will do in about 15-20 minutes, I will check everybody's answers. And we'll write them up on the board and we'll go through and talk about them. I emailed you earlier in Gaggle a copy of the context clues presentation that you can use to help you. It's got some examples on it. I also sent you a Padlet. The Padlet's not important right now, but it will be. You will see on that Padlet that I have some examples as well of what an example, explanation, synonym, and antonym context clue look like. What questions do I have? All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll give you about 15 minutes to sort them. Girls, join. You don't really need your computer right now. Oh, okay. So you can let it charge.
No, it says and over.
This would be simply, this would be anti, which would be opposite.
Alright, so now we're going to start
I get confused with example. Me too. About the story because
I don't actually have the I know Sean here, right?
why is there no answer?
Look up there and see what it means.
I know what antonym means. It's like
And overflowing with fast. Something else.
People talk a lot, but others, okay, although some men are that word, other parts
I didn't even see which one it was. Yeah, you're fine.
I get confused with example and explanation.
Yeah, they're pretty similar. And we're going to talk about it.
Like I understand example like wisdom and you put comma where, no, some of them don't. Some of them just give one little.
And so for me, what I'm going to find is if there's a specific example in the sentence, then I'm going to choose that that's an example.
Like that overflowing thing.
Overflowing.
wait, where'd it go?
Is it this one?
What would we say teaming was if we were to answer this question?
I'd say like full, overflowing, something like that.
Okay, so overflowing is not an option, but full is, right? And how do we get that if we were to break down the question? The boy knew that the lake was teeming and overflowing with bass, so he brought a big net to help get the fish.
I've just heard the word used before.
You've heard teeming before?
Yeah.
I just kind of guessed because it said overflowing, so I thought since the sentence is talking about overflowing bass, the teaming would put in that.
So would you say that overflowing is a synonym? See, this is tricky because I would put this one, you could put it as a synonym because overflow and teeming could be full, like they could be similar to each other, but you could also put it as an explanation because it says overflowing with bass, so you could put it there as well. So I don't think you would be wrong either way.
Is there a reason we didn't have the answer?
No, there is no answer. There aren't.
the baseball coach.
They're not as common as the rest of the common context clues.
No. It's like a
No, Trevor's moving.
I was helping them. They obviously need my help. Because I'm the dominant. Yeah, middle male. Yeah. No, I'm the alpha middle male.
The frigid air seemed to suck his breath away as he attempted to finish his first snowman of the season.
What is that?
Or that could be an example. Because it's saying it is like.
Okay, apparatus.
So it's.
Obviously.
No, giving an example would be like.
Apparatus means something. It means like a device.
I don't know, bro.
An item.
I'm almost positive. I seriously, I'm with you. These are hard.
Well, I mean, an apparatus is like some kind of item or device. I don't know. I don't know how it relates to idea, zipper, instrument, or singular. Well, I guess singular would make sense. So. Apex is dead.
It means like opposite, yeah. Or did you break the Right, it was found running down the street after purchase. His parents were paralyzed. I did not illegal this on the rights. I did not. Now he's gonna have to pay
I beat my dad.
I don't put
Explanation.
not.
It's the crackball drugs me in.
Right? No, it's an example. What an example.
Pretty sure. Yeah. Pretty sure.
This one I'm still positive though is an example. Okay, but
Yeah, I think it's just so much.
All I know about this one, what do you think?
I'm going with spirit and saying it's
Timid ways made us guess which one was the story that she kept herself and never spoke to us, timid and shy.
Okay, so this is both examples.
Okay, so you guys think this is done?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one.
This is a whole story, this one's cinematic. The boy that the lady was teammate with, the boy that the lady was teammate with was bad, so he brought a big net to help get the fish.
That's like why I beat you once.
Because it says overflow. Yeah, okay. The apparatus agility connected was similar to the but this one did all the work while all she was
Like we
pursuing
have
ideas
all
of her
Kind of confused.
Wait.
Well, okay, so well, that's good. That's a good start. No, what you're doing, each of these has a term that you may not know, right? Okay, like apex, and that may be something you don't know. And so you take this, and you look at the question, and you decide how the question, using context clues.
Well, isn't the apex like the top of something?
Yes, good.
Okay, well, when...
About history.
Because it's the bottom.
Well, okay, yes, that's an antonym in the answer, but we are not worried about the answers right now.
Oh, we're just...
We're worried about trying to figure out what the question's asking us. So the question's asking
We were
us.
too focused on the word the whole time.
Oh, okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is figure out what the question is trying to tell you.
I feel like
So this would be
there's so many incidents and explanations.
Yeah, wouldn't you say? I would say explanation. Sometimes example and explanation can seem similar.
Yeah, that's what I think it'd be like. Okay, this is gonna be a lot easier.
Okay.
I got 3.
Yeah, this would be an example.
Alright, how much more time do you two need? Are you good?
Yeah, this one's
We're almost done.
we are done as of right now.
You were done as of right now.
As of right now.
Alright, everybody in a group, promote one person.
Let's go, Shelby.
Wow, I wonder which one that's
No,
gonna be.
to do what?
It was.
Just kidding.
Okay, here's what you're gonna do. Here's what you're gonna do. The person who was appointed, you're going to go to the board, and I've numbered these little crosses that mimic what you have on your table. Now, for simplicity's sake, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it? Okay, here's what you will do. Your appointed person will go to the front, and they will write down the number of the question. Not the number of questions. The number of the question. So what they will do is they'll go up there, and if you have, for example, Trevor's group has, they have 1, 10, and 9 on example. So whoever the leader is will go up and put 1, 10, and 9 where it says example, all right? So let's do it.
I think that's with me.
Well, somebody
Are they all the same?
We're going to see. We're going to see. Whatever they
Examples
put.
in the upper left hand.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. What the heck, guys?
You got this,
All
buddy.
markers are gone.
No pressure.
2, 6, 9, 10.
For which one, this one?
Yeah.
Which one? Wait.
No pressure, Zach. No pressure.
Which one's an example?
Kaylee.
8,
1, 2, 4, 5,
Hey, 2, 6, 9,
and
10
in
on,
3, 4, 7, 8. Explanation.
Hey, 2, 6, 9, 10 on
Okay, what's
example.
an example? Or explanation?
2, 6,
1,
9,
5,
2,
4. Synonym is 8,
Okay.
7, 8, 9,
1,
10.
10, and 9.
What about synonym?
Now we're on 1, Kaylee.
1, 10, and 9.
I think mine is the best. Or numbers. Huh?
2, 3, 5, 6, 8. 4, 5, 6, 8.
Yeah, I know.
7, and 4.
I don't we have
2, 3, 5, 6, 8.
8.
You guys, eventually you're going to create, you're going to
And then
take
it's,
all of your
7,
vocabulary
4.
words, and you're going to make your own multiple choice
It
question
looks like 2, 2.
that uses a context clue like an explanation. Yeah, you're making it so there's a quote,
Yeah, that's why.
and then if they're really good, yeah, so you'll take 4 vocabulary words, and you'll have to answer one of them, an explanation, context clue, multiple choice question. And then if you're really good on Alright,
Gary, wait, the answer?
anybody not get their numbers up there? Alright, what's one thing that you noticed before we even get started? No antonyms. There are no antonyms. Now, why would Miss Blount give you a grid and then have antonyms? This table back here explain.
Can I say?
Yeah.
No, I forgot.
Because it's easier, or the same as it, or what it could be is and what it could be.
If you can say that something is not, then you can also say that something is, right? So if I can say this is not an antonym, then that means that I can recognize what an antonym is, right? So what do we have here? We have no antonym questions. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly because I told you guys that, right? Yeah, so no antonym questions. Antonyms they're harder to make into multiple choice questions, and they can be much more misleading, so tests don't always have them, although they do exist. So be aware that you may find a vocabulary word that's identified sometimes by what it is not. Now, the next thing you'll notice, we have some common themes up there. What is our most common question for example? Which one did you guys almost all uniformly put for example?
2 and 3.
2 and 3 and 6, I think.
Yeah.
What do we have the most of?
3 is on
next
6. 6 is on 3 times.
Right, 6 is on 3 times. Which category do we have the most of?
Explanation.
Explanation. Which one do we have the second most of?
Synonym.
Synonyms and what else? Example. They kind of almost tie in some ways. What am I showing you with this grid? Trevor.
The difference between examples, explanations, and synonyms.
That's part of it, yes. What am I also showing you? With this grid.
How to be as a
How
group.
you can find them in the best way.
How you find it in the best way, right? Now, I will tell you right now, most of these questions could be multiple things. You could have an explanation that also has a synonym. So that might be why I'm seeing 5 in explanation, but I'm also seeing it as a synonym. Will somebody read question 5? What is
Got
it?
it.
The boy knew that the lake was teeming and overflowing with bass, so he brought a big net to help get the fish in the boat.
Probably because he wanted to say base.
I almost said base. I was like,
Yeah. Now, why, this group up here, we talked about why it could be a synonym. Why is that?
Because it has overflow.
Because it has overflowing, and teeming and overflowing are synonymous, right? They are similar. But this back group, Logan's group, we talked about how it is a,
We talked about that.
yeah, but what did we decide on?
Explanation.
Explanation. And why did we decide on explanation?
Because everyone on that page you said.
No, why did we really decide on it?
Because it explained it.
Says it's overflowing with bass, right?
Yep.
So we have a synonym that's also an explanation. Now, here's my other thing that I want you to realize. This table recognized the question as a synonym, right? There was a synonym in that question, and they said because overflowing and teeming are synonymous, then I would probably choose full. And this back group said, I can figure out what teeming means because of the full sentence that says overflowing with fish. So I can see that overflow, in this case, means to be teeming, which might be synonymous with full. You arrived at the same answer using context clues in 2 different ways. Did you see that? Now, what I want you to do is pay attention for a second. I'm going to pull up 2 context clues, and we're going to go through them. And I'm going to show you how I take a text. Now, we're going to focus on the first question, which I think most of you can read. Can anybody not read it? The first one, you've already seen it once, but it says, Thomas went to the apex of the mountain, and because it was so high, he had to take a tank of oxygen with him. Now, I already know what apex means, but let's pretend that I don't. There's a couple of things in this that will help me figure out what it means if I take the time to break the question down. So what I'm going to start with is apex. Is there anything in that sentence that I could decide is similar to the word apex?
High.
High, right? We're focusing only on the question. So I see that apex and high correlate. There's something there that those 2 are similar to me. What's the other thing that I might notice in this sentence as keywords that are important?
Mountain.
Mountain. What else might be important? Oxygen. Now, how many of you go scuba diving on mountains?
There's a pond.
If there's a pond, maybe? Yeah, we don't really do that, do we? So I can tell already that I'm not going to be needing oxygen at the bottom of something because my clues are not for being in water. They're not for scuba diving. They're for being on top of a mountain. What do I know about mountains, just with my prior knowledge?
That they're cold.
They're cold sometimes when you get up to the very top. What else do I know?
Like
The air.
they end
The
at some
air
point.
gets thinner, right? And what did you say? Elevation. What do I know about elevation? The higher I go, the harder it is for me to breathe on my own. What does that tell me the answer might be?
Top.
Top. Now, if I couldn't use my prior knowledge to activate that, the next thing I could do is look at the choices I have and I can eliminate them. So the first thing I'm going to eliminate is A, right? Because it's bottom. And we've already implied that it's high and there's a mountain involved. So bottom is just a no way. The next one I have is B, it's breathe. Got breathe over there. This isn't about breathing, even though oxygen is in it. So that question is trying to deliberately mislead me to maybe accidentally choose breathe if I wasn't reading. I see oxygen, I might choose breathe. So that's what I would call my way off answer. It's just too far out there, it's too wrong, no way. I'm not going to choose B. Now talking clear. Yeah, how many of you have ever gone to a really high place and you can look out over a clearing and see for miles and miles away?
Yeah.
What else might I think about clear? And how would that correlate to another word? Oxygen. Maybe I think for a second that I need oxygen because the air isn't clear. So that one is put there to throw me off. But I've already narrowed it down to 50%. And because I've used my context clues to figure out that apex and high are similar, and I've used my prior knowledge to know what a mountain is and what oxygen is, I can safely take C and circle it and move on. I've got that one. That's how Ms. Blount takes the test. She goes through and she picks out keywords and she looks for similarities and differences. And then, if that's not working for her, then she activates that prior knowledge. What do I already know about this question? And what can I add of my own knowledge to get the right answer? If that fails, then I start eliminating my options. Which two are absolutely not going to work, and which two might be it. And then which of the two that might be it is the most likely. I'm teaching you guys how to be geniuses at trivia crack, by the way.
I don't like it when they have answers that I don't know what they mean.
You
Like
don't know what they
vocab as answers that I don't know.
Well, another example of that is that as a test maker, I might think that if I use vocabulary words that you don't know, that I'll mislead you because you're thinking, oh, because I don't know the answer, that it must also be, or I don't understand the question, then it must be the answer that I don't know. And so they're trying to trick you to get you to think too hard about something that's not that hard. The one thing I want you to understand is that every test can be passed. Every question can be answered. What you have to do is take some time to make sure that you read that question and you think about how the test is telling you what you should get as the answer. What's the hints it's giving you? What's it dropping you that you need to find? Yes, sir.
Sometimes if it's multiple choice, they'll drop like 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 questions that make absolutely no sense.
Yes, they will sometimes on the ACT and sometimes the SAT as well. And we will look at, in the next week or two, some of those types of questions. And we will also break down passages so you can see what those look like as well. Taking big, long, what students call boring reading passages and making them something that we can answer and understand. What questions do I have about context clues? Are we starting to feel better?
Yeah.
All right, here's what I want you to do. I sent you a link to Padlet. On the Padlet link, there are 4 sections, and what I want you to do is I want you and your team, so the people you're setting with, to create 4 multiple choice questions, 1 for each type of context clue. And you're going to use chapter 4 and 5 vocabulary. So I have a list of your vocabulary words on the Padlet. You can just open it up and pick one. And then you and your team will create multiple choice questions. You will make one that's an example, so it tells you the answer, it hints the answer using an example. You'll make another one that uses an explanation, one that uses an antonym, and one that uses a synonym. I've given you examples that you can use, that you can model, so that you can make yours. So at the end of the class, I should have 5 groups, 4 questions for each group, all right? The best questions will be used on your test. So the best questions will be used on your test. I may have to tweak them a little bit to make them work, but they will be there. So the best answers will be used on your test.
How do you?
If you will just click on the Padlet.
Well, yeah, but do we do all the questions in one?